Lesson 4 for October 19 through 25, Facing Opposition. Thursday, October 24, Doing a Great Work. Question. Read Nehemiah chapter 6 verses 1 through 13. Why does Nehemiah see the work he is doing in Jerusalem as a great work in verse 3? What were the attempts in this case to stop him? Nehemiah 6, beginning at verse 1. Now it happened when Sanballat, Tobiah, Geshem the Arab, and the rest of our enemies heard that I had rebuilt the wall, and that there were no breaks left in it, though at that time I had not hung the doors in the gates, that Sanballat and Geshem sent to me, saying, Come, let us meet together among the villages in the plain of Ono. But they thought to do me harm. So I sent messengers to them, saying, I am doing a great work, so that I cannot come down. Why should the work cease while I leave it and go down to you? But they sent this message 4 times, and I answered them in the same manner. Then Sanballat sent his servant to me as before, the 5th time, with an open letter in his hand. In it was written, It is reported among the nations, and Geshem says, that you and the Jews plan to rebel. Therefore, according to these rumours, you are rebuilding the wall that you may be their king. And you have also appointed prophets to proclaim concerning you at Jerusalem, saying, There is a king in Judah. Now these matters will be reported to the king, so come, therefore, and let us consult together. Then I said to him, saying, No such things as you say are being done, but you invent them in your own heart. For they all were trying to make us afraid, saying, Their hands will be weakened in the work, and it will not be done. Now therefore, O God, strengthen my hands. Afterward I came to the house of Shemaiah, the son of Delaiah, the son of Mehetabel, who was a secret informer, and he said, Let us meet together in the house of God within the temple, and let us close the doors of the temple, for they are coming to kill you. Indeed, at night they will come to kill you. And I said, Should such a man as I flee? And who is there such as I who would go into the temple to save his life? I will not go in. Then I perceived that God had not sent him at all, but that he pronounced this prophecy against me because Tobiah and Sanballat had hired him. For this reason he was hired, that I should be afraid, and act that way, and sin, so that they might have cause for an evil report, that they might reproach me. Chapter 6 describes many attempts on Nehemiah's life. Sanballat and Geshem kept sending Nehemiah letters in order to get him to come to them under the pretext of a meeting. However, the meeting was in the plain of Ono, which was in enemy territory, and thus gave away the true intent of the invitation. Sanballat, Tobiah, and Geshem see a window of opportunity that will last only until the wall is finished and the gates are shut. The Jews have the protection of the Persian king, and therefore their enemies cannot conquer them through a full frontal attack. But if they get rid of the leader, they will stunt the progress or perhaps even stop the Jews forever. They are not giving up. Even if Nehemiah is not responding, they keep trying. It must have been frustrating to Nehemiah to have to deal with opposition at every turn. He responds to them by saying, I am doing a great work, in verse 3. By the world standard, Nehemiah was doing a great work as a cupbearer for the king, which was a prestigious occupation, one of the highest in the land, where he served as an adviser to the king. But building a city that was in ruins, that had no apparent worldly significance, that's what he calls a great work. Nehemiah considered the work for God as great and more important because he realized that the honor of God's name was at stake in Jerusalem. Also, when God set up the sanctuary services, he instituted the priesthood. In order to keep the sanctuary holy and special in the minds of the people, he allowed only the priests to perform the duties inside the temple. on our own, we have a hard time seeing the holiness of God. Therefore, God made provision to help the Israelites come into the presence of God with reverence. Nehemiah knew that temple courts were for everyone, but not the inner rooms. By his words about meeting inside the temple, Shemaiah not only shows himself to be a false prophet by suggesting something that was contrary to God's directive, but he also exposes himself as a traitor. So to finish today, what are ways that we today, with no earthly sanctuary, can keep before us a sense of God's holiness? How does the realization of God's holiness, in contrast to our sinfulness, drive us to the cross? This week's lesson has been read by Dr. Percy Harold from Queensland, Australia. It is brought to you by Hope Channel, the Sabbath School Department, and through the services of Christian Services for the Blind. A video of this podcast also occurs on YouTube. Remember, God is always faithful.